In today's video, I'll explain what it means to be disengaged, I'll help you recognise it in your people, and I'll share 3 great ways you can make it better. Hello and welcome to episode number 10. In this video series up to now, I've been sharing lots of tips and insights to help you increase and build engagement and enablement in your people. But until today's episode, I haven't really addressed the fact that in any organisation, you're going to have mixed levels of engagement. Not everyone is going to have high levels of motivation and commitment, and although that's quite normal and maybe to be expected, it doesn't have to stay that way. You can take some steps to light more people's fire and relight some people's fire if they've started to fizzle out. So stick around and I'm going to share some of the best tips that I've learned over the years to be able to do that. I really like the way the Gallup organisation explains this. For them, instead of it being a binary situation where you're either engaged or you're not, you're fired up or you're fizzled out, they instead rate it in 3 ways. The first rating is the engaged group, and when I talk to managers and I say who are your superstars that you hope never leave you, the names they come back with are the engaged employees. They're the ones that willingly give lots of energy and care to the work that they're doing, and they consistently make a positive impact on their customers or patients, on their colleagues and everybody around them. Next is the disengaged group, and it's not that these are low performers or certainly not that they're bad apples, but this group are probably hovering around 70 or 80% of the discretionary effort that they could bring to their work. They're not doing bad work, they're doing good work, but they're certainly not breaking any records or delivering the wow experiences that the engaged group are. And finally, the actively disengaged group. In episode 3, I shared with you a YouTube link called Who's Sinking Your Boat? Well, if we take that analogy, the actively disengaged are the people who are making it very difficult for everybody else to do their best work. They're either rowing in the other direction or they're sitting back and not rowing at all. In some cases, they're actually knocking holes in the boat trying to make it sink, but in most cases, they're not the bad apples. You know, you'll need to use the disciplinary process with those folks. For the most part, the actively disengaged are the people who are just not bringing very much of their discretionary effort to make a difference to their colleagues or their stakeholders in work. Well, as a manager or a leader, you're probably a very gifted problem solver, so it can be tempting to try and put all our efforts into fixing the actively disengaged group. After all, as I said, they're the ones holding everybody back. And although some of those people will have their fire reignited from your efforts, in my experience, there tends to be low return on investment in the energy that you would spend with this group. So I wouldn't try and heroically convert everybody and bring them up to speed to the same levels of the disengaged and the engaged group. Instead, the biggest benefits and returns are to be had from trying to move that disengaged group up to the levels of the engaged folks, up to that 80, 90, 95% of their discretionary effort where they're really making a positive difference. So that's where we'll focus our attention for the rest of this video. I'm going to give you the 3 best ways that I've learned to do that. Just before we jump into the 3 tips, I want to mention about getting some of the fundamentals right. In my experience, most people's disengagement is a result of low levels of understanding and trust in the process. Remember back in episode 6, I shared the sequence of understanding, trust, use, and that's what drives your results. Well, if they don't understand it or trust it, it's probably because of what we as the leaders of the process did or didn't do. So remember that you can head off most reluctance or mistrust by repeating regularly and clearly the why as well as the what and the how of the engagement process that you're putting in place. Okay, so you have the fundamentals in place. What if they're still not bringing more of their discretionary effort into the workplace? Well, here are the 3 things that have worked best for me over the years. First of all, use the most powerful tool that you've already introduced, the check-in process. Now remember, a check-in isn't a survey where you're just passively recording whatever they do or don't respond with. It's a powerful tool that you can use to achieve a couple of outcomes as a manager. Number 1, it's to gather actionable information that helps make everything better for everybody involved. And second of all, it's there to develop the relationship between you and the employee and to increase trust and communication. So if you want to do that, there are a couple of skills that you can develop to get more out of the tool. First of all, I suppose the disengaged group are more likely to give shorter or one-word answers. The engaged group will give you plenty, no matter, even if they're quiet or more introverted. They'll be more willing to share their thoughts, ideas and perspectives. But the disengaged group may not be so. So develop the skill of probing and digging deeper and getting more out of the answers that they do give you, and also get better at using silence to build up just a little bit of gentle pressure to encourage them to actually involve themselves in the process and give you something that you can use. If you're still not getting the most out of that, don't be afraid to pause the check-in. Again, you'll only use this once in a while, but don't be afraid to pause it and have more of a clarifying conversation instead. And here, like I said earlier, you can repeat clearly and patiently, but enthusiastically, what it is you're trying to achieve with the process, what the benefits are for the employee, and what your expectations are, and answer any questions that they have that are holding them back from getting the most out of the tool. So, first port of call, get more out of the check-in tool that you've already introduced. Second thing you can do is to share the wins. One of the best ways to increase levels of engagement and motivation in a team is to regularly, enthusiastically, and preferably publicly share and celebrate the good things that have been happening, especially by the people who've gone above and beyond. So tell some stories and share some examples of how a customer or a patient has been really positively impacted by something that somebody or everybody has done. When a disengaged person feels like momentum is being built up or that success is being achieved and that they're not part of it, quite often this creates a gentle pressure where they decide to lean in and give more of themselves. And even if the first baby step is just them giving 5 or 10% more of their discretionary effort and care and attention, big things start to happen, and it gives you something that you can work off and catch and acknowledge in the hope of it repeating. So if you've taken those first 2 steps of getting more out of the check-in tool and celebrating the wins with the team, the third thing that you can do is to get more out of using your thank you notes. Now, if you actively watch out for the behaviours and standards and the actions that you want, at some point you're going to notice them. Unless something's drastically wrong, it's going to happen and you'll spot it if you're looking for it hard enough. And then whenever you have the opportunity to send a thank you note to one of these disengaged people, well, then that's your opportunity to increase their buy-in and trust in the process. I can't even count the amount of times I've seen people who were initially lukewarm or just outright reluctant to play a part in the engagement process, and when they received a genuine, well-timed thank you note that they deserved for going above and beyond, that was it. They just were totally different people, and they just leaned in and were on fire, and there was no going back from there. They were part of the engaged group. One of the biggest benefits of adopting this approach with the thank you notes is that it shifts your mindset from viewing these people as a problem child or a difficulty to one of enthusiasm and actively seeking out the good things, which then again feeds the other steps beforehand of sharing the wins and getting more out of the check-ins. So the 3 steps that I would recommend you take are: improve your skills and get more out of the check-in process, share and celebrate the wins regularly and loudly, and finally, use your thank you notes for what they're designed for. So those are 3 powerful things that you can do to move that group of disengaged people up a level and have a huge impact on your goals and results in the organisation. For me, the biggest success factor here is your willingness to persevere and your ability to not judge or get impatient with this group of people. Instead, if you firmly and calmly continue to use the tools that I've shared with you, eventually you will bring most people along with you, and that's the sweet spot where you're putting in the right amount of effort but getting huge amounts of results back. Well, we're almost at the end of this video series now, and to celebrate that fact, we're going to do something a little bit different in the next episode, so watch out for news about that. In the meantime, thanks for tuning in today, and I'll see you next time.